Imagine this. A pharmaceutical manufacturer is confidently churning out life-saving medications. Then, boom, an official inspection reveals that the actual safe limits for chemical residue left on their shared equipment were 100 times lower than their legacy assumptions allowed. Literally 100 times lower, right? That's not just some tiny rounding error, right? That is massive regulatory risk and, frankly, a direct, serious threat to patient safety.
Welcome to this explainer on Module 8 of our Cleaning Validation series, focusing on acceptance criteria and limits. Today, we're taking rote compliance and transforming it into scientifically defensible cleaning validation. We're going to look at exactly how we set the limits that prove, without a doubt, that our manufacturing equipment is truly safe to use from one product batch to the next.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We'll start with the stakes, then look at the shift to HBL. After that, we're mastering MAACO calculations, moving beyond API residue limits and wrapping up with real failures and audits.
Section 1. The stakes. Why acceptance criteria matter.
So, inappropriate criteria can produce false confidence or unnecessary cost. Think about it. Acceptance criteria define the absolute regulatory threshold below which cleaning is actually considered effective. It's the baseline that drives every downstream decision. If you set your limits too high, well, you risk leaving behind dangerous active pharmaceutical ingredients that could seriously harm the next patient, and for sure, that will absolutely lead to a critical audit failure. But on the flip side, if you set them unrealistically low without any real scientific justification, you end up wasting an incredible amount of resources chasing a totally impossible standard of clean.
Let's move to Section 2. The shift to HSEBL, modernizing limits.
You know, for decades, the industry just relied on legacy models. We're talking about the classic 1/1000th of a therapeutic dose limit, or just a flat 10 parts per million limit. But here's the thing. These historical defaults completely lacked true toxicological grounding. And today, inspectors are increasingly calling these legacy approaches out as totally inadequate, especially when we're dealing with highly potent modern products. So the global regulatory standard has definitively shifted to modern models, specifically health-based exposure limits, or HBEL. This is a methodology grounded strictly in actual patient impact. It's accepted globally, it's heavily aligned with ASTM E3106 standards, and it's explicitly required for shared equipment under EU GMP guidelines. Honestly, those old legacy models should really only be used as secondary cross-checks at this point.
At the very heart of this modern HBLO approach is this key definition, PDE, or permitted daily exposure. Basically, this is the daily dose of a substance that is unlikely to cause an adverse effect in patients receiving the product. Now, you might also see the term ADE, which stands for acceptable daily exposure. Don't let that confuse you. They're functionally equivalent terms used by regulators. These values form the operational foundation for all modern calculations. It's what shifts our focus away from just arbitrary math and toward actual human biology and toxicology.
So how exactly do we come up with this PDE number? Well, it takes a rigorous 4-step toxicological assessment, and it has to be performed by highly qualified personnel. Step 1. Identify your toxicology data sources. These could be animal studies, clinical trials, or published literature. Step 2. Establish the NOAL. That stands for the No Observed Adverse Effect Level, and you pull that from the most relevant data. Step 3. Apply uncertainty factors. We often multiply by factors of 10 to account for things like interspecies differences or just individual human variation. We also have to make route-specific adjustments, right? Because it matters if the drug is oral, topical, or parenteral. And finally, Step 4. Calculate the PDE by dividing the NOAL by those combined uncertainty factors. What you're left with is a deeply scientifically defensible daily exposure limit, one that will absolutely withstand inspector scrutiny.
Section 3. Mastering MAACO calculations, from tox to operations.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we make that exact leap from toxicological theory to practical on the manufacturing floor limits. To do this, we use a core calculation called MACO, Maximum Allowable Carryover. To find the MACO, we need 3 key variables: the PDE we literally just derived, the total batch size of the next product to be manufactured, and the maximum daily dose of that next product. The mathematical relationship here actually tells a perfectly logical safety story. You take the permitted daily exposure, so the safe amount for one patient in one day, and multiply it by the total batch size of the next product in line. Then you just divide that by the maximum daily dose of that next product. This formula tells you exactly how many total milligrams of residue from the previous product can safely be allowed to carry over into the entire next batch without harming a single patient. Pretty brilliant, right?
But wait, there's a catch.
Mako is a bulk mass number for the whole batch, and equipment, well, that's evaluated by surface area, so we've got to convert it. The surface limit is simply the Mako divided by the shared equipment surface area. By accurately accounting for every single square centimeter of product contact surface, you arrive at your operational limit. This is typically expressed in micrograms per square centimeter. And that final number? That is your official pass or fail criteria.
Okay, Section 4. Beyond API residue limits, the full picture. We can't forget that a defensible cleaning validation program must also set strict acceptance criteria for 3 other factors: visual cleanliness, cleaning agents, and microbial bioburden. Active pharmaceutical ingredients are only one part of the equation. You have to prove the chemical detergents themselves are washed away, which often means setting surfactant limits to 5 or maybe 25 parts per million in the rinse water. You also have to control biological residues, keeping bioburden and endotoxins tightly regulated, which is absolutely crucial for sterile parenteral products. But I really want to emphasize visual cleanliness here. Being visually clean is a necessary gatekeeper. In modern validation, visual inspection complements the quantitative analysis. Listen, if an operator spots a visible residue, it immediately disqualifies the equipment. Full stop. It literally doesn't matter how flawless those mathematical chemical limits might appear on paper. Both checks are fundamentally required.
Finally, Section 5. Real failures and audits, lessons from the field. Let's look at some real-world nightmares, starting with the surface area error. One manufacturer completely forgot to count the product's contact surfaces inside their transfer piping during their validation calculations. Remember our MACO conversion formula from earlier? Well, if your surface area denominator is too small because it's incomplete, your allowed surface concentration limit becomes falsely inflated. And this brilliantly illustrates why this stuff is so high stakes. This wasn't a minor mistake. This calculation error propagated through their entire validation program, consistently underestimating the achievable carryover concentration. Routine samples that looked totally fine were actually exceeding safe limits, forcing a full, incredibly painful recalculation of the entire facility. Here's another complex scenario: the sensitizer acceptance. Products like penicillin and beta-lactams are highly sensitizing. That means they can trigger severe, even life-threatening allergic reactions in patients at microscopic doses. A standard HBEL, which is based on a standard toxicological dose-response curve, is just entirely inadequate here. To prevent those allergic reactions, sensitizers require specialized considerations. We're talking completely dedicated manufacturing equipment or extreme, highly specialized acceptance criteria. You simply cannot treat them like a standard compound. No way! Then there's what we call the method sensitivity mismatch. Imagine your mathematically derived HPL-backed acceptance limit is 1 microgram per square centimeter. Excellent, right? But the limit of quantitation, or LOQ, of your facility's testing equipment is 5 micrograms per square centimeter. Do you see the problem here? Your criteria must be physically verifiable. If your acceptance criteria falls below your actual ability to detect it, well, your routine not detected results are completely meaningless. It just creates a dangerous illusion of false confidence.
Accepting external PDE values without verification creates immediate exposure. A contract manufacturer actually got hit with a major audit finding because they simply accepted the PDE values provided by their API supplier without doing any independent assessment. Well, it turned out the supplier's PDE was based on heavily outdated toxicology data. Newly published studies actually indicated a much lower safe threshold. So, best practice dictates that you absolutely must establish an independent toxicological assessment methodology. Just blindly accepting external claims without verifying the toxicological grounding, that's just inviting critical inspection findings, and worse, putting patients at risk.
So what does this all mean? It brings us to a critical, provocative question you really need to ask yourself and your senior management team. Is your cleaning validation built on false confidence, or is it built on true toxicological science? Relying on legacy models or flawed mathematical inputs is basically a ticking clock. I strongly urge you to proactively review your acceptance criteria against modern HBL standards. Verify your operational limits today before a reactive, incredibly costly remediation is forced upon you by an inspector tomorrow. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the science behind the standards.